Republican presidential candidates have just 1 week to convince voters in Iowa to support them. With just 6 days to go into the first of the nation caucuses, former President Donald Trump was not out on the campaign trail today. Instead, he was in the courtroom, attending a hearing on his claim of presidential immunity in the 2020 election case. The Republican frontrunner holds a commanding lead in the Hawkeye state, and that's according to a CBS News recent poll. We have Scott MacFarlane and Ed O'Keefe joining us now. Scott is CBS News congressional correspondent, and Ed is CBS News senior White House and political correspondent joining us inside in Iowa. But Scott, I want to begin with you. And I think it's really telling that we have you and Ed here because this is kind of a preview of what we're going to see this campaign. Trump in the courtroom while also campaigning for the presidency. His team today, you were there, trying to make this argument that the president at the time was immune, should be immune from prosecution. What was the case that his lawyers were trying to make, and how did the judges respond? An hour and 15 minutes of arguments, and throughout, you got the sense from the 3 judges on the appeals court, they're skeptical. They're dubious about what they heard from Trump's lawyer. He's making this multifaceted argument that he's shielded from prosecution in the election conspiracy case because he was the president doing official acts when the alleged crimes occurred. And he also made this argument that it would be a double jeopardy case for the former president because he was impeached but acquitted by the Senate, so he can't be criminally prosecuted for that reason. Right from the jump, Caitlin, the 3 judges pressed right into the heart of that argument and spent most of their time questioning Trump's lawyers. Before I explain where they went with it, let's take a listen to some of the exchanges in court from earlier today.
To authorize the prosecution of a president for his official acts would open a Pandora's box from which this nation may never recover.
I think it's paradoxical to say that his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed allows him to violate criminal laws.
Never before has there been allegations that a sitting president has, with private individuals and using the levers of power, sought to fundamentally subvert the democratic republic and the electoral system. And frankly, if that kind of fact pattern arises again, I think it would be awfully scary if there weren't some sort of mechanism by which to reach that criminally.
This sets up 2 big moments in the courtroom today. First of all, the judges made this, through their questioning, a prominent point. If Trump's lawyer's arguing he can only be prosecuted if he's convicted in an impeachment by the Senate, then they're contradicting their argument he can't be prosecuted at all. Kind of diminishes the idea of immunity. But more so, one of the judges, Florence Pan, new to the court, a Biden appointee, really pressed Trump's lawyers, saying, if you have presidential immunity, what do we make of a future president selling pardons? A future president ordering a SEAL team to assassinate his political opponent? And Trump's lawyer equivocated in the responses, going back to that old he's got to be impeached first issue. That's what the court's going to grapple with as they make their decision.
Any sort of sense of timeline? Is this something that can drag on? Both sides can appeal whatever the decision is.
The appeals courts are notoriously mercurial about their timetables. They rarely announce them, nor is there a deadline for this. They kind of set up the arguments promptly. They've moved swiftly to this point, which could indicate a swift ruling. But your point's, I think, the more prominent one. Whoever loses is going to appeal to the full appeals court, likely to the Supreme Court. All of that cannibalizes time. And with a March 4th trial date on the calendar, that's looking dubious. It may be pushed back well into 2024.
So it continues, and we will follow your reporting as it does. Scott MacFarlane, as always, thank you. Ed, I want to go to you, senior White House and political correspondent in Iowa, inside from a big snowstorm happening there. Good to see you, nice and warm, hopefully. So I do want to talk a little bit about this dynamic, how we're going to see kind of this split screen, Trump in the courtroom while also, trying to campaign, and in many ways, the courtroom being the campaign. I know you've been on the ground for several days talking to voters there. Our polls show the former president has a real commanding lead. You've been reporting on a robust ground game and targeted effort that he has. But what are voters telling you about, how they feel about these cases? Are they, in fact, helping him?
Well, first of all, it is great to see you back, and we just can't do this without you. So I'm glad you're back in the saddle. I know you're going to be out on the road soon. So welcome back. Out here in Iowa, Caitlin, I think what we picked on today, at least, is a little more skepticism about these surveys, these polls that show the former president with such a commanding double-digit lead. This is something I picked up on over the summer, and I think some of our other colleagues have heard as well, and I heard it again today, this idea that when someone's calling your house or calling your cell phone and saying who you're voting for, there's a skepticism about who exactly is on the other end of the line. And so there may be Republicans in this state who are going to say Trump out of concern that it might be somebody who is not a pollster. Incredible to think that that is a potential wrinkle here, but it could be. And we're not going to know until next Monday night, really, how big his advantage was. What we saw today is Nikki Haley holding the only really big event that she's done since she got here over the weekend, because one she was supposed to do yesterday when the snow was beginning was canceled. Today she really had no choice but to do it. There were a handful of people there, and we found the Republicans who are skeptical of whether former President Trump can be the party's nominee when he's dealing with all the things you and Scott were just talking about. Take a listen to this voter, for example, who raised some of those concerns.
I voted for him last time, but there's so many issues with him right now. Is he electable? He's polarized the country quite a bit more than I think than the other two candidates. And then the issues is he going to be able to run? All the criminal probes and things going on.
So as Bob Rawlings said, there's concern that he has that Trump may not be the one, and so he's trying to decide between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. There were others at that event who said the same. They get their chance to do that tomorrow night in a comparison shopping debate that the two will be holding at the same time that the former president will come back here to Iowa after his various court dates and hold his own separate town hall on another network. So voters here and across the country, in essence, will get a chance to sample them in a slightly more specific way. And it suggests that there is still a decent chunk of Republicans who have not made up their mind and who are still trying to decide if there's someone who's not inclined to support the former president.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, too, about how, these voters are there meeting these candidates face to face, and there is potentially a chance for some kind of surprise. I'm curious, too, because I know you were at Nikki Haley's event today, but you've also spent a good amount of time covering DeSantis, and I'm curious if you've seen anything on the ground that kind of may negate some of the polling that we've seen showing Trump with a commanding lead, and if DeSantis is going after Trump in any more strategic ways.
So the thing that people have to remember everywhere else is the way you win a caucus is precinct by precinct, strategic, surgical almost, in where you find the voter that might be interested in you. Trump's been doing it for a while. DeSantis' Super PAC, that Never Back Down organization, has been doing it for longer, since last spring. What Haley doesn't have in terms of that, she does have in terms of outside support now from the group called Americans for Prosperity. Very well-known, ground operation, conservative organization that has tentacles all across the country, but especially here in Iowa. And you talk to people, they say, yes, I've been hearing from the DeSantis people. I've been hearing from the Trump people. I've been hearing from Americans for Prosperity on Haley's behalf. Is that going to be enough for her? We'll see. But certainly, you talk to veterans of this, you talk to voters who've shown up, and they say, Trump gets it now. He didn't get it back in 2016. He's built the operation he needs to make the calls and find hundreds of voters and hope that at least dozens of them show up at a caucus. DeSantis has done that, and that's what gives him the confidence, and that's why he continues to say, I'm going to do better than you think. Haley's the big unknown because she came in here later and she didn't spend as much time building that organization. We'll see. And the weather will be a factor, Caitlin. It's freezing, it's windy, there will be snow, and that will keep people away.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's why we find you inside, but you may be pulled into extreme weather coverage if you haven't already. Ed O'Keefe, thank you for braving the elements for us, and we will talk to you soon. Stay safe and warm.